I still remember the exact moment the realtor's sign went up in the front yard. It was 3 days after we buried Mama. I'd driven straight from the cemetery to the old house on Maple Crest Lane, the one with the creaky porch sling and the rose bushes Mama babied every spring. My eyes were swollen, my black dress still smelled like lilies and wet earth, and all I wanted was to sit in her kitchen and drink the tea she used to make too sweet. But when I turned the corner, there it was, a bright red and white "For Sale by Owner" sign, stabbed into the grass like someone had driven a knife through the heart of my childhood. I sat in my car with the engine running and just stared. The porch light was still on, the one Mama left burning for us kids whenever we came home late. Only now the house looked empty, like it already knew we were gone. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. Let me take you back a little, because none of this makes sense without knowing how things used to be. Mama raised the three of us in that house after Daddy passed when I was 9, me, Evelyn, and our baby brother Marcus. Evelyn is 2 years older than me, always the bold one, the one who spoke first and thought later. I was the quiet one, the fixer, the one who made sure the bills got paid when Mama's hands started shaking too much to write the checks. Marcus was the dreamer, always off somewhere with his head in the clouds. That house wasn't big, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a kitchen where the linoleum curled at the edges. But it was ours. Every scratch on the hardwood, every faded spot on the wallpaper where we measured our height with a pencil, every squeak on the 3rd stair, those were the sounds of Mama loving us the only way she knew how. When Mama's cancer came back the last time, the doctor gave her weeks. Evelyn flew in from Charlotte, where she'd been living the high life with her real estate husband, always talking about flipping this and investing in that. She stayed exactly 9 days, long enough to sit by Mama's bed and cry pretty tears for Instagram, then told us she had appointments she couldn't miss. I was the one who stayed. I slept on the couch, changed the morphine, held Mama's hand when she whispered she was scared of the dark. I was the one who heard her last breath at 3:17 in the morning, soft as a sigh. The morning of the funeral, Evelyn pulled me aside in the church parking lot, heels clicking on the asphalt. "Listen, Ruth," she said, squeezing my arm with her manicured nails. "I know Mama told me she wanted me to handle the estate. You've been through enough. Let me take this off your plate." I was so tired I could barely stand. My eyes felt like sandpaper. I just nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. "I trust you." That was my mistake, trusting her. The day after the funeral, I went back to my little apartment to sleep for the first time in a month. I left my phone on silent. When I woke up, there were 17 missed calls from Marcus and 1 text from an unknown number, a photo of our house with that awful sign in the yard. I called Marcus, hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "Ruth, Evelyn listed the house," he said, voice cracking. "She says Mama signed something giving her power of attorney. She says it's already under contract." I felt the floor tilt under me. Power of attorney? Mama could barely hold a pen the last 2 weeks. She hadn't signed anything except the birthday card I helped her write for my niece 3 months earlier. I drove straight to Maple Crest Lane. The porch light was off now. There was a lockbox on the front door like it was already somebody else's house. I sat on the top step, the same step where Mama used to wait for us with popsicles in summer, and I swear I could smell Mama's perfume in the air like she was standing right behind me, asking what in the world was going on. That evening, Evelyn finally answered her phone. "Ruthie, honey," she started, voice syrupy sweet. "I know the timing's not ideal, but Mama's medical bills are through the roof and—" "Don't you lie to me," I cut in. My voice didn't even shake. It came out flat, dead calm. Silence on the line. Then a little laugh, like I'd told a joke. "You're grieving," she said. "You're not thinking straight. The house is too much for any of us to keep up. I found a cash buyer. We close in 2 weeks. You'll get your half, minus expenses. I promise." My half. Like she was doing me a favor. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with every document Mama had ever signed spread out in front of me. Bank statements, insurance papers, the folder marked in case I go in Mama's shaky handwriting, and there, tucked between the life insurance policy and her funeral instructions, was the real will, notarized 2 years ago when Mama was still strong enough to drive herself to the lawyer. Everything split 3 ways, house included. No power of attorney, no changes. Evelyn had forged Mama's signature while I was holding her hand, watching her slip away. I felt something inside me harden, like wet clay left out in the sun. She thought grief made me weak. She was about to learn what it really made me.
The next morning, I didn't cry anymore. I made coffee the way Mama taught me, 2 scoops of Folgers, a pinch of salt, and let it sit until it's strong enough to wake the dead. Then I sat at the table with my phone and the folder and started making calls. First call was to Mr. Hargrove, the lawyer who drew up Mama's real will. His secretary put me straight through when I told her it was about Clara Mae Johnson's estate. "Ruth, honey," he said, voice gentle like he was still sitting across from Mama in his office, "your Mama made everything crystal clear 2 years ago. Equal shares. The house stays in the family unless all 3 of you agree in writing to sell. Did Evelyn bring you something different?" I told him about the power of attorney and the for sale sign. He went quiet so long I thought the line went dead. Then, "Bring me everything you have, sweetheart. We'll stop this cold." Second call was to the realtor, whose name was on the sign. Tammy Ledford, someone Evelyn went to high school with. Tammy answered on the second ring, chipper as Sunday brunch. "Hi, this is Ruth Johnson. That's my Mama's house on Maple Crest. Can you tell me what's going on?" Tammy's voice dropped 2 octaves. "Oh, Ruth. Evelyn said y'all had an agreement and you were too upset to handle the paperwork. She brought me a power of attorney and a new will, both notarized. I never would have listed it otherwise." I closed my eyes. "Tammy, when exactly were those papers notarized?" She shuffled some pages. "Let's see, the power of attorney is dated 11 days ago. The will, 3 days after that. 11 days ago, Mama was on hospice morphine, couldn't lift her head off the pillow." I thanked Tammy and asked her, real polite, to please not show the house until she heard from Mr. Hargrove. She promised. Whew. By noon, I was sitting at Mr. Hargrove's office, the same one with the wooden duck decoys on the shelf and the smell of pipe tobacco that hadn't changed since I was 12. He took one look at the forged power of attorney and shook his head slow. "This notary stamp belongs to Darlene at the UPS store on Highway 74. Darlene retired to Florida 6 months ago. That's a fake stamp, Ruth." He laid the real will beside the fake one. Mama's signature on the real one was strong, proud loops. On the fake, it wobbled like a child trying to copy her. Mr. Hargrove leaned back. "We can file an emergency injunction this afternoon. Judge Owens owes your Mama a favor. She kept her flower beds for 30 years. But Ruth, are you sure you want to do this the hard way? Family in court gets ugly." I looked him straight in the eye. She put a for sale sign in Mama's yard 3 days after we buried her. Ugly's already here. That afternoon, the injunction was granted. Tammy took the sign down before supper. I didn't call Evelyn. I wanted her to find out the way I did, by driving past and seeing the yard empty again. She showed up at my apartment 2 days later, banging on the door hard enough to rattle the hinges. I let her in because neighbors were looking. She stormed past me in her expensive coat, hair perfect even when she was mad. "What is wrong with you? Do you know how humiliating it was to have Tammy call me crying that the deal fell through? Those buyers were cash, Ruth, cash!" I stood by the kitchen counter, arms folded. "Mama's will says the house belongs to all 3 of us. You forged her name while she was dying." Her face went white under the makeup, then red, then she laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think you're so righteous, always the martyr, staying with Mama, wiping her mouth, playing the good daughter. Well, guess what, Ruth? Somebody had to live. Somebody had to make something of themselves instead of rotting in this godforsaken town." I felt the words land like slaps, but I didn't flinch. Mama wasn't rotting. She was home. Evelyn rolled her eyes. "I'll contest the will. I'll say she was senile. I have witnesses." You have Darlene's fake stamp and hospital records showing Mama couldn't hold a spoon, much less sign legal papers. Go ahead and try, Evelyn. I've got nothing left to lose. You still do." She stared at me for a long moment like she was seeing me for the first time. Then she grabbed her purse and left, slamming the door so hard my coffee cup rattled. That night, I drove to the house. I still had my key. I walked through every room with the lights off, running my hand along the walls, like I could still feel Mama and the plaster. In the kitchen, I opened the cabinet where she kept her good teacups, the ones with the tiny roses. One was missing. Evelyn must have taken it the day she brought the hospice nurse coffee and cried for the camera. I sat on the floor right there, back against the cabinets, and I talked to Mama out loud. "I'm sorry I let her hurt you. I should have watched closer. But I promise you, baby, she's not taking this house. Not one brick." Outside, the roses were still blooming in the dark. I could smell them through the screen door, sweet and stubborn, just like Mama. The next step wasn't going to be pretty, but it was going to be final. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog with a flashlight that kept flickering. Mr. Hargrove filed everything: the emergency injunction, the fraud report with the sheriff's office, a motion to have Evelyn removed as executor because of conflict of interest and suspected forgery. Every time a new paper got stamped, I felt Mama exhale somewhere inside me, like she'd been holding her breath waiting for one of her children to stand up. Evelyn fought dirty. She hired a lawyer from Charlotte, some slick man in a three-piece suit who talked real slow like we were all too country to understand him. They filed a counterclaim saying Mama had promised Evelyn the house verbally many times, and that I was the one trying to cheat her out of her rightful share. They even dragged Marcus into it, sweet, spineless Marcus, who just wanted everybody to get along. Evelyn got to him first, took him out for steak, and told him I was trying to keep the whole house for myself. He called me crying one night, asking why I was being so selfish. I didn't yell. I just mailed him copies of both wills, the real one and the fake, with the notary fraud circled in red. Then I invited him to come sit in Mama's kitchen with me. He came the next Sunday after church. We didn't say much at first, just sat at the table where Mama used to roll out biscuit dough, the one with the burn mark from when I was 7 and set a hot pan down wrong. Marcus traced that burn mark with his finger like it was Braille telling him the truth. "I didn't know, Ruthie," he whispered finally. "She told me you were jealous because I live farther away and don't visit enough. She said you wanted to punish us both." I poured him some of Mama's leftover sweet tea from the fridge. Still good, because I couldn't bear to throw it out. "Drink this," I said. "Mama made it 3 days before she went into the coma. Taste it, and tell me if you think she was in any shape to rewrite a will after that." He took one sip and started crying into the glass. After that, Marcus was on my side. Quietly, but solidly. He signed the affidavit Mr. Hargrove needed, saying he'd never been told about any new will, and that Mama had always said the house belonged to all 3 of us. Evelyn's next move was uglier. She started telling family, cousins, aunties, even Mama's church ladies, that I was dragging my own sister through the mud over money while our Mama wasn't cold in the ground yet. Some folks looked at me sideways at the Piggly Wiggly. Miss Lorraine, who'd known me since baptism, asked me in the cereal aisle if it was true I was suing my own blood. I just looked her in the eye and said, "Miss Lorraine, if somebody tried to sell your house out from under you the week you buried your Mama, what would you do?" She patted my hand and said, "I'd do exactly what you're doing, baby. Carry on." The court date was set for the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Evelyn wanted it pushed back, said she needed time to grieve properly. Judge Owens denied the motion, said grief doesn't get to forge signatures. The night before court, Evelyn showed up at the house again. No banging this time. She knocked soft, like she was afraid the door might bite her. I opened it and just looked at her. She had on no makeup, hair in a messy bun, wearing one of Mama's old cardigans she must have taken from the closet. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice hoarse.
I stepped aside. We sat in the living room where Mama used to watch her stories. The TV was still tuned to the channel with the soap operas. Evelyn stared at the dark screen like she could see her reflection in it. "I'm scared, Ruth," she said finally. "My husband's business is in trouble. We're upside down on 3 flips. The buyer for this house was going to bail us out. If this falls through, we lose everything." I felt something twist in my chest, but I didn't let it show. "You should have told me that before you forged Mama's name," I said. "We could have figured something out, sold it fair, split the money, helped you. But you didn't ask. You stole." She started crying then, ugly crying, the kind where your whole face crumples. "I didn't know you'd say no," she choked out. "You always acted like you were the only one who loved her enough to matter." I let her cry. I didn't hand her a tissue. I didn't touch her. When she quieted down, I said, "Tomorrow, the judge is going to see the fake notary stamp and the hospital records. You know what that means?" She nodded, wiping her face with Mama's sleeve. "There's still a way to stop this. You withdraw your claim, you admit what you did in writing, you pay Mr. Hargrove's fees and the sheriff's investigation costs. Then we don't press charges. We sell the house fair and square, 3 ways like Mama wanted. You get your share, you save your marriage, whatever's left of it, but you never set foot in this house again without my say-so." She looked up at me, eyes red. "You'd do that, Ruth? After everything?" "I'm doing it for Mama, not for you." She sat there a long time. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out the missing rose teacup, the one Mama loved best, wrapped in one of her silk scarves. I took it the day she died. I just wanted something that still smelled like her. I took the cup. My fingers brushed hers and they were ice cold. "Leave it on the table," I said. "Go home, Evelyn. Tell your lawyer to withdraw in the morning." She stood up slow, like an old woman. At the door, she turned back. "I'm sorry, Ruthie. I really am." I didn't answer. I just closed the door quiet behind her. The next morning, her lawyer filed the withdrawal. The judge dismissed the case. The house was safe. But the story wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot.
The day after court, the house felt different, not empty anymore. It felt like it was breathing again. Marcus and I met at Mama's kitchen table with Mr. Hargrove and a pot of coffee strong enough to strip paint. We weren't fighting now. We were planning. The 3 of us, well, 2 of us and 1 lawyer, decided the house shouldn't sit idle while we figured out what came next. Taxes still had to be paid, the yard still needed cutting, and those roses weren't going to prune themselves. Marcus looked at me across the table, eyes still red from everything he'd learned in the last month. "I can't keep my share, Ruthie," he said quietly. "I live 4 hours away, got my own mortgage, my own babies, but I don't want it sold to strangers either. Mama would roll over in her grave." I knew what he was about to say before he said it. "You take my part," he told me. "Buy me out fair, make it yours. Keep it in the family." I started to argue, old habit, but he held up his hand. "You're the one who never left her, Ruth. Not when she got sick the first time, not the second, not the last. This house remembers your footsteps more than mine." Mr. Hargrove drew up the papers that week. Marcus signed his third over to me for exactly what the appraiser said it was worth. No penny less, no penny more. Evelyn got her third in a cashier's check the same day. She never came to sign in person. Her lawyer dropped the envelope through the mail slot like he was scared to knock. I stood in the doorway and watched that envelope sit on the mat for a long time. Then I picked it up, put it in the drawer with Mama's good stationery, and never deposited it. Some money you just can't spend. The first thing I did after the deed was in my name was walk every room with a notebook. I wrote down what needed fixing: the back porch step that had been wobbly since 1998, the bathroom faucet that dripped in the exact rhythm of a heartbeat, the crack in the dining room ceiling shaped like the state of Tennessee. I wasn't rich, but I had Mama's life insurance money and a little savings, and for the first time in my life, I had something that was truly mine to care for. I started small,
New paint, the color Mama always wanted but never got around to. Soft, buttery yellow in the kitchen, pale sage in the living room. I pulled up the old carpet in the hallway and found the hardwood underneath still beautiful, just waiting for someone to believe in it again. People noticed. Miss Lorraine from church stopped by with a casserole and stayed 3 hours telling me where Mama hid the good silver during Hurricane Hugo. Then Mrs. Delgado down the street brought tamales and asked if her granddaughter could hold a quinceañera in the backyard because the roses were so pretty. I said yes before I even thought about it. Word spread. A young couple getting married asked if they could take pictures on the porch. A lady who had just lost her own mama asked if she could sit in the swing for a little while and cry. I left the side gate unlatched. One Saturday in early spring, I was out front planting new rosemary by the mailbox when a car slowed down. I looked up, shading my eyes, and there was Evelyn. She was thinner, no makeup, hair pulled back plain. She didn't get out at first, just sat there with the engine running. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans, and waited. Finally, she rolled the window down. "It looks nice," she said, voice small. I nodded. "Rosemary's for remembrance. Mama always said so." She gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. "I'm leaving him," she blurted out. "The business is gone. The houses are foreclosed. He's moving to Florida with some girl from the title company." She laughed, but it cracked in the middle. "Turns out I'm the one who lost everything." I didn't say I told you so. I didn't say anything at first. Then I walked over to her window and rested my forearms on the sill like we were teenagers again, leaning out the upstairs window, whispering about boys. "You still got a third of this house in that envelope. Money doesn't rot, Evelyn. You can start over." She looked at me like she didn't recognize the language I was speaking. "I don't deserve," she started. "Maybe not, but Mama would have wanted you to have a roof that knows your name. When you're ready, you come see me. We'll figure it out. No lawyers this time." A tear slid down her cheek and hung off her chin before it dropped. She nodded once, put the car in drive, and left. I watched her taillights disappear around the corner, then went back to planting rosemary. That summer, I turned the dining room into a space for grieving mothers. Just some comfortable chairs, a coffee pot, tissues, and a sign on the door that said, "Come in and sit a spell. You don't have to talk." Word spread on Facebook. Women came, some stayed 10 minutes, some stayed 2 hours. They brought photographs, baby blankets, stories they couldn't tell anywhere else. I just listened and kept the coffee coming. The house never felt empty again. Some nights I still walk the rooms after everyone's gone and the moon is shining through the curtains Mama sewed herself. I run my hand along the walls and I swear I can feel her heartbeat in the plaster. I kept the roses, added lavender and mint, and a little plaque by the front steps that says, "This home belongs to memory now. All who carry it are welcome." And that's the truth of it. The house never sold. It just grew a bigger heart.
Years have passed since that spring morning when Evelyn drove away with tears on her face and dust kicking up behind her tires. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like last week. She did come back about 8 months later, showed up on a Tuesday evening in the rain, soaked through, carrying one small suitcase and the face of someone who'd been broken down to the studs and hadn't decided yet whether to rebuild. I opened the door and didn't ask questions. I just stepped aside. She slept in her old room that first night. I heard her crying through the wall, the same thin wall we used to press our ears against when we were little, trying to hear Mama and Daddy argue about money. I didn't go in. Some tears need to fall alone. The next morning, I made biscuits, the way Mama did, cutting the lard in with a fork until it looked like cornmeal, the kitchen warm with butter and memory. Evelyn came down in one of my old nightgowns, hair a mess, eyes puffy. She stood in the doorway watching me like she was scared the floor might disappear. "Sit," I said, same tone Mama used when we were late for supper. She sat. I put a plate in front of her, poured coffee the color of midnight, and waited. I deposited the check. she said finally, voice raspy. Paid off what I could. Filed bankruptcy on the rest. She looked around the kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time. She have nothing left, Ruth. Not a stick of furniture. Not a friend who'll answer the phone. Just this. She tapped the table. Just you. I buttered a biscuit, broke it in half, and handed her the bigger piece. You've got more than you think, I told her. You've got a sister who decided forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. And you've got a roof that still knows your name. She cried into the biscuit. I let her. She stayed. It wasn't easy. Lord, it was not easy. Some mornings, she'd wake up angry all over again, like grief and shame were trading shifts inside her chest. She'd slam a cabinet or snap at me over nothing, and I'd feel that old hardness try to rise up in me. But I'd go out to the garden, dig my hands into the dirt Mama loved, and remind myself that healing isn't a straight line. It's a garden. Some days you prune, some days you just water and wait. Evelyn started coming to the grieving mother circle on Thursday nights. At first, she just poured coffee and washed cups. Then one evening, a young widow named Latoya lost her little boy to leukemia and couldn't stop screaming. Evelyn, of all people, got down on the floor with her, held her like Mama used to hold us when the world got too big, and rocked her until the screaming turned to breathing again. After that, Evelyn started talking. Not about the forgery, not yet. She talked about losing her own way long before Mama got sick, about chasing shiny things that turned out to be fool's gold, about waking up one day and realizing she didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. People listened. They always do when someone finally tells the truth. She got a little job at the library reshelving books, said the quiet felt like church. She saved every penny and paid me back Mr. Hargrove's fees in 20s wrapped in a rubber band. When the last payment was made, she left the empty envelope on the kitchen table with a note that just said, "Thank you for not letting me disappear." Marcus comes home more now, brings his kids to run through the yard and pick roses they're not supposed to pick. We laugh about it the way Mama used to laugh when we tracked mud across her clean floor, half scolding, half delighted that somebody still loved this place enough to make a mess of it. Some evenings, the three of us sit on the porch swing that doesn't creak anymore because Marcus fixed it, drinking sweet tea and watching fireflies. We don't talk about the almost selling of the house much. When it comes up, we just say, "Remember when we were fools?" and let it go. Some stories don't need repeating. They just need burying in good dirt so better things can grow. I never married. Never felt the need after all that. This house, these women who come through my door carrying pieces of their broken hearts, the garden that blooms brighter every year. That's my love story now. And it's enough. Sometimes people ask me if I regret fighting so hard, if it wouldn't have been simpler to just take the money and walk away. I tell them what Mama told me the day she taught me how to plant roses. Anything worth keeping is worth bleeding for a little. I still have the rose teacup Evelyn stole and brought back. It sits on the shelf above the stove where Mama always kept it. Every morning, I make coffee. I touch it just once, like saying good morning to both of them. And I remember that forgiveness isn't a gift you give the person who hurt you. It's the door you open so love can keep living in the house long after the hurt is gone. If you're watching this, and you're in the middle of your own storm, if somebody you love has taken something sacred from you, if you're wondering whether to fight or let go, whether to lock the door or leave it unlatched, I want you to hear this from a woman who stood right where you're standing. Protect what was entrusted to you, not out of anger, but out of love. And when the dust settles, leave room for mercy. Because sometimes the person who needs to come home the most is the one who tried to burn it down. Would you have opened the door for Evelyn after everything she did? Or would you have changed the locks and kept walking? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and sometimes I sit right here on this porch swing and pray for you by name. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that healing is real and families are messy and grace is stubborn, do me a kindness. Like, share, and subscribe. Because every time you do, another woman out there finds out she's not alone. Thank you for sitting with me today. I'll leave the porch light on for you. Until next time, take care of your heart and the people still trying to find their way back to it.